I think we can start. First of all, we're very happy to see many of you joining today. Once again, a very welcome to all of you. My name is Agnese Glaude and I'm part of the NATURANCE team at CMCC. It's a pleasure for me to be here today to open this session, introduce also our outstanding speakers, and welcome all the Naturethon groups joining us for this webinar titled Financing Local NbS for Lasting Resilience. For those who are new to the initiative, Naturethon is a wide-reaching collaborative effort that brings together citizens groups across Europe and beyond also to explore innovative nature-based solutions advancing climate action and disaster risk mitigation. The initiative is organized by the Naturance project and aims to foster dialogue, creativity, and collaboration on how financial instruments can help scale up nature-positive solutions. Today's agenda features two expert presentations from our speakers who are already connected with us today. Lenka Slavikova from the University of Jan Evangelista Purkyně in Ústí nad Labem in Czech Republic, and also Jaroslav Miziak from the Euro-Mediterranean Center on Climate Change. He's also the Naturance coordinator. Their presentations will focus on how innovative financing can support nature-based solutions, highlighting practical tools for local implementation and approaches that link financial mechanisms with ecosystem-based strategies to build resilient community. The presentations will be followed by an interactive session where participants will have the opportunity to discuss their NbS ideas and financial strategies to support them. Before we begin, in the previous slide, just a quick note on the housekeeping. So this is a meeting, so please, we kindly ask you to keep your microphones and cameras switched off. Second, we also encourage you to use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to send any question. Feel free to submit them at any time. Our team of experts, including my colleague Stefano Celotto from CMCC, who's here with us today, they will collect them and then we will address them all during the dedicated Q&A sessions with the speakers. So before hearing from the speakers, let me briefly introduce the two projects contributing to today's event. First is Naturance, a Horizon Europe project that examines how disaster risk financing can be effectively combined with investments in nature-based solutions. At the heart of the project are the innovation labs that are collaborative spaces designed to advance nature-positive insurance. These labs bring together experts from different sectors to co-create climate adaptation financing pathways. One of the project objectives is to raise awareness among citizens, which is exactly the goal of our webinar today. And then in the next slide, we have our second project contributing to the webinar, which is Land4Climate, a EU-funded project dedicated to deploying and demonstrating nature-based solutions on private land. By targeting private land, Land4Climate promotes transformative approaches that strengthen Europe's climate resilience through the implementation and scaling of innovative land policy strategies. And from Land4Climate, we are pleased to welcome our first distinguished speaker, who is Lenka Slavikova. Lenka is a public economist specializing on the adaptation behavior of land users to climate-related extremes, such as floods and droughts. She chaired the Cost Action Land for Flood and is currently co-leading the work package on barriers and enablers for nature-based solution uptake within Land4Climate. Lenka will introduce today the NbS Alternative Financing Guide, an interactive resource designed specifically for practitioners who are aiming to deploy NbS in their communities. Thank you very much, Lenka, for joining us today on behalf of the whole Naturance team, and the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to talk to you. So I'll share my presentation. I hope you can see it now. Yeah, and let me briefly thank you for the great introduction, by the way. I have not much to add to who I am and where I come from. And I think it's nice that we can share some preliminary outputs we achieved within the Land4Climate project that are especially focused on alternative financing for local NbS. First of all, why the talking about this alternative financing is important within the Land4Climate, but also in general. I think with NbS we deal with the situation that we have many types of measures, dozens of them. We need large number of them across the entire catchment, and each of them is pretty much small intervention. So with this situation, it might be, or it's quite difficult to employ the traditional approach that works well for the large projects, which is the just use of public subsidies to make a nature-based solution happen. There's many cases along Europe and worldwide where these projects were implemented within the public projects, but there is also general agreement among us researchers, but also practitioners, that each of these quite small interventions took quite a lot of time to prepare, to fund, and there is a problem with maintenance funding when public resources are gone. So to address all these challenges and also to speed up the NbS implementation and to make sure that NbS are implemented in in big frequencies and with shorter time period to secure resilience of catchments, this is something that needs to be addressed. And alternative financing schemes, or sometimes we call them business models, might be the way forward how to make this happen. The specific of Land4Climate project is that we are particularly interested on privately owned land. That's one of the core of our projects, which makes our life quite difficult, but that's one of the reasons why we try to solve this. So when speaking about NbS implementation, it's difficult to imagine that every pieces of land we need, we are able to buy out and to make it public. And implementers, public authorities are also not in favor of buying everything to implement NbS and other actors as well. So the only way how to increase the number of NbS in catchments is to talk to private landowners and to try to get them on board with various means and motivations, which can be both internal or external. And again, alternative financial schemes I'm going to talk about today might be the way forward how to attract these private landowners. Here's just a few numbers to prove that currently NbS are financed mainly from public subsidies that can come from the European, national, but also local or regional level. And this is something that is valid worldwide. So it's also valid for the US, for the European and global context. And the discussion about alternative financing schemes is now pushed because we would like to increase the amount of non-public financial resources for implementation. Also, with public financing, there is quite a lot of challenges that are relevant for all kinds of subsidies. So NbS subsidies are not the exemption. And by talking about alternatives or combination of resources, we might be able to tackle some of these challenges listed here. So it is that public budgets will be always limited. There is hardly any money for maintenance when the project is over. There's always some bureaucracy or rules that needs to be somehow followed when it's public funding. And also that is especially a situation I'm aware of in Czechia, that sometimes NbS are multifunctional, and you need to find the reason for the right function to make them funded from the certain budget. For example, you make an argument that they will enhance biodiversity to make it funded from the Ministry of the Environment, etc. So funding of these multifunctional measures, when each of them are bringing just a small portion of the benefit to some particular problem, that's also challenging for public financing. That's why within the Land4Climate, we developed a document that has not an ambition to be a rigorous scientific study, to put it this way, because there's a lot of academic paper produced also within Land4Climate that will be good for that. But this alternative financing guide, we tried to sum up some information that is out there in the literature or on websites of particular cities and agencies, and we'll try to present those information in quite simple way, so practitioners can just scan through these different types of alternative financing, and they can also read something about examples that are connected to each of them. Of course, they could be a discussion why we decided to go for these 9 types you have listed here on this picture. That maybe PES are also some of the groups can be merged and some of them can be divided. I'm aware of that. But again, our ambition was not to provide some classification that cannot change in future, but mainly to in a very simple language to describe what are the schemes out there, how are they called, and how are they implemented in practice. So that's the document that has been also shared in chat about. So feel free in the meantime to scan through. And just to give you the short hint or maybe some input for the discussion, I would like now to introduce 2 cases that are also presented in this financial guide for practitioners. One is urban example, and the second one is rural one. A notable example comes from Italy, Milan, where they have a program Adopt a Green Spot, which is a citywide scheme with a lot of stakeholders participating in funding and realization of small urban NbS, such as tree and vegetation planting, green roofs, and other NbS that are typical for urban areas. The program works for around 20 years now, and around 50 or more than 500 measures has been realized and has been maintained. And it works with 2 different financial models. One is sponsorship, where different kind of firms or private actors are giving money, and the city does the implementation and maintenance. And the second type is that the people themselves or different kinds of stakeholders, including NGOs, are contributing to the maintenance. So it's not the contributions through money, but through work, voluntary work. And here is what are the main barriers tackled when we talk just about public financing or simple public subsidy schemes that are also quite typically used in urban areas for the similar measures. So the main advantages of this Italian case is that they are not just public resources generated from taxpayers or from national level of the municipality. So there is a different kind of sponsorship or different kind of private funding included here. And the second is that there is a collaboration through voluntary agreements that somehow helps to keep the maintenance of, and there's this clear commitment of local actors, which together builds local partnership and participation that makes the program last for quite a long time with good results and good practice that can be transferred elsewhere. And yeah, the motivation there, you from the presentation or from the text, you can read where there is much more. It is clear that internal motivation of a lot of actors involved here is quite high, and also that the contribution, especially through the voluntary work that is invested in this program, is not high. So there is this low cost implementation of measures where everyone contributes with a little bit, but the city itself gives the framework within which everything happens. It gives some public resources, but much more is contributed by a large number of other actors. The second case comes from Austria, and it's a rural one. It's about the community crowdfunding, but also into some extent the PES scheme that funds biodiversity enhancement NbS on private farmland. The measures that are funded here are typically changed farming practices, restoration of wildlife habitats, and as you can see from the slide, the hunters are pretty much like active within this scheme because the improved wildlife habitats are also good for hunting. So that's why they are so closely included in this program. And money here to restore these NbS on private farmland comes from a mix of sources. So again, there are some regional subsidies, small contribution from hunters, and uncollected hunting leases. And the hunting association collects the funds and pays the farmers. So they serve as intermediaries here. And having the regional subsidies or support from the regional level gives this whole scheme a legitimacy and builds the trust that this whole model is not something made up by hunting NGOs, but it's something also supported from the public side. Hunters also coordinates implementation and maintenance of measures. And again, there is a lot of challenges tackled here that are usually connected with just purely public funding. First is that it is quite easy and low bureaucratic scheme, and money are transferred, not much money, but some money are transferred directly to individual farmers that are also advised what to do on their private plots. There's a big flexibility and again combination of public and private resources. And there are these trusted local intermediaries that are talking to farmers. I can imagine that many of them are also members of this hunting association by themselves. And this is how also the voluntary work to make it happen is invested into running the whole scheme. There are many more examples in the guide, but I think it makes no sense to continue here. You feel free to read it because it's not really text intensive document. But I would like now to wrap up with the 3 takeaway lessons that comes out from our work on alternative financing schemes. And first is that in Land4Climate, we also have a lot of practice partners. And when we started to talk about these alternative financial instruments, their expectation is, oh, the universities are coming and they have some magic instrument, they will introduce it to us, we'll implement it, and this is going to be it. And of course, this is not how the world works. So from this overview of examples, but also from the general literature, it's clear that funding of NbS will be always the mixture of different types of resources, public ones, private ones, community ones. And these all mixed together will follow some local reality, including who might serve as the intermediary and who might be the one collecting and distributing the money, and if there is or there is not space for voluntary work, and if someone is willing to contribute voluntarily with their time. So it will always be a mixture, and it needs to be context relevant. It seems, from what we found out, that these hybrid models can work better for small-scale NbS that are multifunctional, and very often we have this problem with proving the benefits from large number of ecosystem services they provide. So through these kind of hybrid private-public community financing, we might be able to increase the number of NbS and increase the total amount of resources that are devoted to implementation and maintenance. And third takeaway, and I'm sorry, I need to always move Zoom from one side to another, is that the intermediaries here is an important feature of all kinds of these local-based hybrid models, because just to have money does not secure the long-term cooperation from private landowners. The local trusted intermediaries are the one giving advices and trying to reconcile different interests, and generally they build the trust on which these kind of hybrid schemes usually work in long term. So this is everything from me. Again, this is the guide. You already saw it. And these are some of the resources we worked with or I used during my presentation. And at the end, I'd like to highlight that we are perfectly aware of the fact that this topic is kind of on spot at the moment. So in our guide for practitioners, we also mentioned other databases of financing models and cases. And we'll be happy to collaborate with other teams that are somehow trying to focus in different context on the same thing, which is what could be the alternative financing models for NbS implementation, what is the good practices, and how to scale it up or transfer it from one place to another. So I'll be happy to be in touch if you feel so. Don't be hesitant to write me or to give us feedback on this guide for practitioners. And yes, thank you, and I'll be happy to address your questions now.
Thank you very much, Lenka. I think this was really interesting for the Naturethon participants and very pragmatic, practical, with some good examples. So I'm sure this was really inspiring for all the groups working towards their NbS projects. And yes, we already have some questions in the chat. And yeah, I want to welcome Stefano, who is going to help me with the Q&A session.
Thank you very much, Lenka, for your very interesting presentation, and thank you, Agnese. I would like to invite all the participants to ask your questions in the Q&A sessions of this meeting. While I question in the chat that was asking about the specific hunter scheme that you were mentioning in your case study. I'm not going to attempt the German pronunciation, which is in the chat, but I don't know if you could provide further information on whether that is actually the scheme that you are referring to. And then...
All right. I don't have a yes or no question. There are two pages with all the references in the guide, and the guide is joint work. And of course, our colleagues from Austria were working on this case. I only want to say that not much is published about it because it's really local one, and they found it a bit by the accident. So, but there are some references to local, I think, German sources that are supporting the information gathered in the guidance document. So sorry not being personally engaged in describing this case. So I can't really say if this is the one you're mentioning, Alexis.
Yes, thank you anyways, Lenka.
Okay, thank you very much, Lenka. I think we have another question. So have you come across bioregional finance facilities developed largely in the US, and whether you have had a chance to review them and how they relate to your assessment of nature-based solutions financing models?
In the guide, I think we don't have a US examples. The good question is why. We have some biodiversity and carbon trading that goes outside of the EU. I think there's somewhere in Asia. But I think there's definitely much more out there than we covered. So that's maybe the question why some specific schemes and activities from the US are not included, because we tried the information in the guide are based on the systematic literature review of the academic sources, and also by a limited number of gray literature. And we might definitely missed some examples that could be interesting and complemented the evidence, but we don't have it there. So I think there is no US evidence at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much. While we wait for other questions, I think that your work that you presented today is very, very timely and addresses a very big gap in the current state of affairs, which is the sort of detachment between the practitioner or financing side and the expertise or scientific side, in which the two oftentimes tend to speak different languages. And you try to fill in this gap with your practitioner's guide. I wanted to ask you whether you also encountered this sort of detachment further along the way of the implementation and financing processes, not only in terms of what instruments are available for people who want to put money, but then how do you explain to people who might be keen on investing, how do they make money out of these investments in order to raise their incentives and their willingness to invest in nature-based solutions? I don't know if this is something that you have or if you've worked on this also in your project.
In our project Land4Climate, the next steps from here, and you're right, it's very difficult to communicate quite comprehensive information in a way that is also useful for practitioners, and we as academics are not good in it. So that's why I would wonder if we did at least some good job with the guidance document. But now, to continue this discussion about how the alternative schemes could work and how the stakeholders, especially the landowners, approach them, we are in the Land4Climate developing the serious gaming, which should test different types of these alternative instruments through the negotiation of the group of real landowners playing the game and negotiating their willingness to somehow participate in this alternative schemes or be convinced by changing land use when motivated through these alternative schemes, but we don't have the game ready at the moment. We are developing it.
Okay, looking forward to seeing it once it's ready, because it's also something that it's very interesting for me. And I don't know how much more time we have for the Q&A session.
I think we should wrap it up. So thank you again, Lenka, very much. And all of the questions that we received and we were not able to address, we can then forward them to you if it's interesting for some of the participants, or answer if we already know the answer. And thank you again very much. And thank you, Stefano. So now it's time to move on to our next speaker, who is Jaroslav Misiek, and he is a principal scientist at CMCC. He's expert in risk assessment, but also the coordinator of NATURANCE. So we're very happy to have him with us today. Jaro will present NATURANCE's findings on bridging the gap between insurance and nature under changing climate conditions, highlighting the financial tools that promote a local collaborative ecosystem-based approach to enhance community resilience and preparedness. So thank you very much, Jaro, for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you very much, Agnieszka, and thank you, Lenka, for a really interesting and engaging talk. I will see whether I can quickly share my screen, and that should work. Yeah. Can you please confirm that you see that in full presentation mode?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, brilliant. So thank you very much. In my talk, I will also speak about and introduce a specific type of instrument that Lenka mentioned. I think partly these type of instruments are briefly mentioned in the scheme that Lenka introduced, but we have paid a lot of attention into developing the rational and the application field. So I will start a little bit from a broader perspective, and this is about recalling into your mind what is a nature-based solution and why we are doing that. You are looking into locally based intervention that can be informed by nature-based solution. This is the Naturethon, right? Empowering the local action groups, looking into solutions for restoring nature, rehabilitating the ecosystem services, or different type of intervention for the sake of improving the resilience. So on this slide, you see a number of interventions that could be qualified as nature-based solution. They should help us to tackle the challenges that we are facing and provide benefits. But they can be located in many different places and for really different purposes. So here you can see some examples. We have very important nature-based solution for improving soil fertility, natural control of pests, increase of the productivity, and many more. There are other interventions that are more at the larger river basin scale, help to retain the water, and other are placed in urban context and help to reduce the heat or capture the pollution. So there are a number of things that you can incorporate into your thinking and brainstorming in the local context for the scope of designing the intervention that you would like to see. In coastal area, the nature help us to reduce the coastal damage. We will be talking about that, reduce the storm and wave impact, seawater intrusion, and carbon storage, of course, but there are also cultural services that are very important. In the river system, there is a lot of things that can be done in order to create space for the excess water or retain the water in the landscape as to feed into the period of low flow or low water availability. But there are multiple other interventions like reducing erosion and creating opportunities for recreation. And in the city context, you might think of green roofs and walls, rain garden, sponge cities to absorb the water. So Lenka has showed this vertical forest, which is very interesting. We have been doing similar stuff, exploring how much would pluvial risk be reduced by urban green. And Andrea is attending these meetings, so perhaps you might also want to share some insight of that. Very interesting study of showcasing that nature restoration also in cities can provide interesting venues for risk reduction. So we have been looking into exactly what the insurance can do in order to promote nature restoration and protection of ecosystem. And we are running into the basic problem that plenty of ecosystem services have a economic value, but there is no price paid for their provision. And this can be seen on the examples of the marsh forest in the coastal areas where the coastal forest basically reduce the coastal risk. They attenuate the wave height or dissipate the energy of the coastal flooding, and that protects the property that is on the coast. Right. This is a very small example of how this might work. The same principle is applied also to coral reefs, and I will be talking about some scheme encouraging the combination of insurance and coral reef restoration. So this is basically the problem that we are trying to see. So if we can demonstrate that nature restoration in different contexts reduces the risk, then we can tap into the funding, be it by risk transfer, be it by insurance. So there is a certain buffer, right, created in the current way. What we are paying for certain financial services, like we are paying premiums for insurance, and the reduction of these premiums by restoring nature can be called greenium, right? And greenium has also multiple meanings. It basically means that you accept less return on your investment because you think that it is worth to do that, and it's the destination is meant that it creates multiple societal benefits. So greenium is a way of capturing this, right? You reduce the risk, that means insurance premium will be lowered, and what you are lowering creates a certain source of funding for paying for the nature restoration. So this is how it works. And it is useful for a number of reasons, right? We have at the same time tackling the challenge of biodiversity finance gap. We have a very ambitious nature restoration objective and biodiversity protection. And for that, we need large investment. And the same we have in the climate adaptation and a number of other fields. So if you are looking from across the different policy domains, what can be done, then you certainly identified that the connection of nature-based solution or nature restoration with risk transfer mechanism like insurance makes a huge sense, right? And there are existing schemes that have been already established. You might have heard about the Mesoamerican Reef Insurance Program that is basically insuring the coral reefs, right? Insuring means that the scheme provides quick money for restoration of the coral reefs once they are damaged. And the same is also for mangrove forest, parametric insurance that help to create an incentive for investing more into similar intervention. Right, there's more information about it, how it works. Basically, rather than protecting the property by traditional insurance mechanism, you can insure the ecosystem service that has a risk reduction potential, and because of that potential and because of that contribution, you experience less damage, and that means the insurance becomes insurance premium becomes lower or more sustainable if you want more affordable for a number of other entities. So this is what we have been doing, right? In NATURANCE, we have been looking into what we call nature-based insurance and investment solution. And I would really want to invite you, when you are thinking about how nature restoration or ecosystem restoration in your context might contribute to increasing resilience, you might also think about how to tap into this potential and create a funding link, right? Through insurance, through risk transfer, and so on. So nature-based insurance or solution is something that we have been working on. You can find more about what we are doing on our website, which is the same for the Naturethon. We are working with a number of communities that we engaged in helping us to design similar opportunities. And we are working a lot with them in the context of innovation laboratories, where we look at specific area, what can be done there, and how this link to insurance could look like. So if you are still struggling a little bit to grasp what is the link between insurance and nature restoration, then let's look into that, right? On the left side, you see the situation in which there is no insurance, right? Either no insurance offered or no sustainable insurance provided, right? Financial protection. And this creates a lot of difficulties, especially, having a insurance contract is providing you with access to mortgage loan, right? So many banks require, when they provide you with loans to buy a house, so that there is a basic insurance against some natural hazard or some calamities that might damage the property, right? And this is part of the financial protection. But it works also in the opposite way, right? If the existing insurance cover is withdrawn because of the unpredictable nature of the climate risk, then you will see that at the property prices. And this effect of insurance not being available for property insurance is estimated something between 3 and 7, 8, in some cases even higher percentage of the value of the property. So you might think, if you sum this across larger areas, then this is creating a financial bubble, which is very significant. Then in the middle, the second figure is basically showing that there is an insurance in place, but it doesn't provide an incentive for reducing the risk, right? And this is also challenging, because as the risks are increasing, so will the insurance premium, right? And at some stage, the insurance premium will be so large that you will not be able to afford them. So looking for a connection to, or incorporating incentive for reducing individually or collectively reducing the risk, is also a way for the insurers to maintain their businesses sustainable into the future. And what we are looking into, and this is shown by the insurance being green, right, that you are, this incentive is encouraging you to do something more in terms of nature restoration or nature-based solution, right? And doing something can be done at your property level, right? There are a number of ways how you can restructure your garden, your house, making it more energy efficient, but also making it more resilient in terms of extremes, and more suitable for helping your neighborhood to cope with those impact. You might intervene at the neighborhood level, community level. There are different schemes that the community can think about how to make that available, or even at the landscape level. You have river basin upstream and downstream risk transfer, which is very important, right? In the room for river, or in the other schemes, you are investing upstream in order to make the downstream area safer. And this is very, very important. So what we have been doing, apart of doing a lot of research and screening and comparison, we've been also looking into specific places how to combine that. And if you are looking for inspirational examples of how to reduce the wildfire risk, for example, you can discover a laboratory on the ecological forestry and how insurance might be combined with this type of forest management in order to reduce the risk and use the greenium generated by that in investing even more into ecological forestry or pay for foregone income. Another example that we have been exploring in Italy is the controlled flooding system that will gradually help to turn the high value and intensively used agricultural land into a more restored ecosystem that deliver the benefits for not only for the flood protection, but also for groundwater recharge and additional benefits. So it's situated in specific governance of the risk in Italy. To explain the full detail would require much more time than I have, but you can imagine matching the role and mandate of different actors in the case studies so that you create a space and you can assign a specific responsibilities and role within the new scheme to the existing institution that help you to collect, to organize the insurance, collect the gains, and basically create a mechanism that everybody benefits from. So this is what we are working on, and this is basically what we pass on to you in order to start thinking in your context how the nature can be used in order to deliver something more resilience in your context, improving the local conditions and so on. And it might work in different cases. I have been showcasing two types of insurance solution. The one is extended traditional insurance or indemnity insurance, right? Lowering or making sustainable the premiums and so on. So starting with what is already there in the place, and you might think about how to introduce the incentive to protect or restore the nature. The other one is more radical and more transformational in the sense that you might think about how the ecosystem themselves could be subject of this financial transaction. That means how to turn the ecosystem into insurable asset. Right. There is there is very strong economic rationale behind this, right? It's very certain, and it's demonstrated with it's a sound way of thinking. The nature restoration is a cost-effective strategy for reducing the risk. Insurance has the potential to play a very important role in this, and the avoided damage, right, generated by reduced risk might be used as the source of funding. In the broader context, you might also think of this as a way of delivering on the public resilience goal, right? We have seen in specific situation that the the insurance is not anymore a financial service, but it's a objective of the public policy. And this is what makes it very interesting to combine the other roles of public policies, like protecting the environment, creating a livable and quality enhanced environment in which we live, with the protection of our asset and human life. And this is with this message I would like to leave you and encourage you again when you are looking into the solution that can be implemented in your areas. Think about how insurance might be used to make it work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jaro, and thank you very much for the presentation. Your contribution was really a good transition for us for the second session, bridging all the project outputs with the contributions and from the citizens. So I'm sure that the Naturethon groups will benefit from the insights from the NATURANCE project. And but first, before the interactive session, let's see if we have some questions from the audience. I welcome back Stefan as well.
Thank you, Agnes, and thank you, Gar, for the very insightful presentation. Once again, we invite the participants to share your questions in the Q&A section. And while we wait for come in, maybe I'll break the ice. I think that the existence of a greenium is very clear. Like ecosystem services can really reduce the damages from climate and events, and so they should also be translated into lower premiums. However, despite the ample evidence that we have, insurance companies still not frequently recognize these benefits into their practices and do not often guarantee and offer lower premiums for the implementation of nature-based adaptations or nature-based solutions. So I was wondering, based on your expertise and on the work that you've done, what do you think are the most promising and best practices to incentivize and to push insurers to start effectively recognizing these greeniums, into their practices and consistently offering premium discounts for nature-based adaptation?
This is a very good question. And I have been attending a meeting this morning with the insurers themselves. They define themselves as believer. They've created a working group that look into nature restoration, the role of nature in the risk and risk transfer mechanism, and so on. So I can report from that meeting what we have been looking at, and I believe the first thing to make the insurers aware of that neglecting nature in the CAT models is basically meaning that the risk is either underestimated or overestimated. So they don't do their core business right. And this has been visible in a number of things, but it creates a bubble. In 1992, the insurance sector and the risk modeling especially experienced a huge shock because the hurricane damage from the Andrew hurricane went to the levels that were not anticipated by the models. In the same situation, we are currently now with neglecting the nature and climate change are both embedded together in the influence. So the first thing that we are trying to make sure, and that many have already recognized that, is that it's not optional. It's not a fancy work, right? The bringing nature into the CAT models is absolutely a necessity because otherwise they don't do their job correctly. The second thing is once they do that, to make them also to recognize their role in encouraging the risk reduction. And you might say insurance is a financial service, right? It should not be conflated with the public policies. And so why they should intervene there. And again, there are plenty of good arguments for doing that. I mentioned uninsurability and as the key driver and withdrawal of insurance companies from certain areas. So this is doing that is basically making the business sustainable in the long term. There's a long way to go. The good practice is being developed by UJEP financial initiative, Naturethon, and other initiatives like looking into guys. There's much more to think about. So I would say there is a emerging practice and best practice examples how this should be done. We are part of that. We are also running the SEN community workshop on, let's say, pre-standard, defining what those solutions are and how they should be assessed. This is also done by us, and our adoption of similar talks or similar principles is very important for the insurers as well. So I think they're looking into that, and we will see more of similar solutions.
Thank you very much, Charo. Maybe we have time for one more question. I see that there is one in the chat. So does ecosystem services valuation a prerequisite to apply for financing to provide evidence-based justification to push for nature-based solution projects?
Well, it goes much beyond the insurance, right? So whether it makes sense to assess the economic or financial value of certain ecosystem services, and it does, right? It makes a huge sense. I don't want to make my answer too complex. There is in the academic community, there are different views on how to make the aggregate of it, right? So to what extent we can say and estimate the value of all coral reefs at the global level, right? This is an interesting, intellectually stimulating exercise. It has certain challenges, right? So this is a part of, right? If you are familiar a little bit with the controversy about under which condition the value of ecosystem services should be aggregated to a global estimate, I think it would deserve a little bit more attention, right? There are many arguments in favor and many arguments against. But we are speaking about specific application. What does it mean to restore nature in specific places and how it might help to build the resilience? So this is very much tangible and action oriented. So it does make sense. It makes sense to demonstrate that there is a value. Not all values can be quantified in economic terms, but still exploring them or qualifying them, expressing in qualitative terms, but still be useful in order to demonstrate why they are important for the community and for the interesting mechanism of the nature itself. It is important.
Thank you very much, Shadow. I think we will have to move on to the next session because we have to be going to the interactive workshop of this webinar. But if you have any more questions for Yaro, and if Yaro himself wants to answer to some of the participants in the chat, you're very welcome to continue the discussion there. So now with the slides here. A very brief recap of what Naturethon is. I'm sure many of you are already familiar, but since we have some new participants joining today, Naturethon is an initiative designed to help local communities and citizens develop bottom-up nature-based solutions and envision resilience measures in urban contexts. Participants are inspired by expert talks and guided by a curated set of materials provided by NATURANCE. The photo on the slide shows a moment of celebration from the previous Naturethon edition, featuring one of the groups that were recognized by the project for their outstanding contribution. So in the next slide, we will see how does Naturethon work. First of all, you will have to register. Registration are still open for groups, and we invite you to register if you haven't done so yet. Also, you are invited to register to the newsletter to stay up to date with all the latest Naturethon news. And then also you can watch back all of the previous training and supporting activities, so the previous 2 webinars, in case you have missed them. Then you can start engaging in discussion with your group in your preferred setting. And finally, we warmly invite you to submit your ideas to develop a nature-based solution, whether this is a video, report, presentation, or infographic. You can do so in your preferred format, and you can also get more inspiration through the digital library, which is available on the NATURANCE and Naturethon webpage. In the next slide, we go over some important information and a timeline for participation. So you see here, Naturethon was launched in September, but there's still time for new groups to join. We have in fact moved the submission of ideas deadline to the 8th of December to make sure that also participants joining us today are able to develop their idea and go through the process. Then on the 15th of December, we will announce the second edition of Naturethon winners. Winners will be recognized, as we will see in the next slide, through first a participation certificate for all of the groups involved, and then winning proposals will be honored by planting a tree in the group's name. Finally, the representative of the ideas that demonstrate exceptional innovation, feasibility, and social and environmental impact will also be invited to join the Finance Innovation Festival, which is the final flagship event from the NATURANCE project. So now is finally time for our interactive session. We went very quickly over what Naturethon is, so to give you the time to discuss and do the exercise that is expected from today. So I'm happy to give the floor to my colleague Andrea Staccione, who will introduce today's activity. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Andrea.
Thank you, Agnese, and thank you for the the very inspiring talk that we have by Lenka and Jaro. I will invite all of you to stay with us because taking inspiration from what we just heard, now we want to move into an hands-on exercise to explore how nature-based solution can be supported and implemented in your local context. This interactive session is designed as practical training activities. This is something that you can learn today and then later replicate with your own teams or stakeholder groups as well. And in the next half an hour, more or less, we will work into small breakout rooms, each one focusing on a climate-related topic. Today, we will focus on flood risk, urban heat waves, and biodiversity losses. And you will be invited to discuss each other. Now stay on the first slides, please. Go back and back. To stay with discuss with all the other participants, to reflect together on the key stakeholders and target users and the potential financing strategies. So what is now see here is the example of interactive mirror board that we are going to use. As for those that were with us also in the last time, we are proceeding with the same exercise. The idea is that starting from your local context, your local idea, we together have identified before the key challenges related to the climate, environmental, social, and economic issues. We try to explore some potential ideas related to nature-based solutions, so the practical implementation on the environment, on the ecosystem restoration, but also what are the potential associated solutions related to the governance, regulation, social implication, and economic. And today we are going to focus on the last two columns, so identifying the main users and actors that we should be involved to make NbS really effective, and try to explore what financing mechanisms and strategies could support this implementation. So we will work on the idea that we've developed in the previous workshop to try to understand how to use this last part of the exercise. In the next slide, you can see some examples for the stakeholders and user example. So the idea is to try to understand what are the most important actors that support NbS implementation, what are the user and target groups that you're thinking about for your project NbS. This can be the public, so citizen, families, children, indigenous communities, students, etc. So like citizens in more general, like the private sectors, including businesses that can work in the area, like restaurants, hotels, nature positive enterprises, but also fisheries, farms, tourism operator, and so on. Also from the government, so the key entities that need to be involved, like municipalities, regional administration, water boards, managers of the river basin or parks, for example, and finally also the environmental and nature conservation groups or some other NGOs that can support educational and community engagement activities. In the next slide, you can see just some quick examples on the financing strategy. So the idea is here to see which financing sector could have a higher impact if you are going to have a support or looking for a support for the public sector, so from European, national, regional, or local government funds, or if we are more looking to private sector, so small businesses, corporate social responsibility, private investor, bank, insurance, etc. Or also some individual or citizen contribution like taxes, voluntary contribution, crowdfunding, and so on. And lastly, also if there is the need of some policy that support and drive this changing, so we can build on the regulation requirements. So all these examples you will found also in the Miro board we will use, so you can also use it as an inspiration during the exercise. So now each room will have a couple of facilitators with us that help to guide the activities. And that we will introduce more in detail if it's needed. So you can now, if you copy in the chat, you can see the Miro board link. You can access the Miro board, and then we will ask you to choose your topic of interest between across flood risk, urban heat waves, and biodiversity loss. And then here on the bottom you have click the bottom to join the breakout session. To everybody, I hope everyone is back, and I hope you had a nice discussion within your breakout group. As I said, this was a training module. We just focus on examples, but you can report back and use with your group this board. The link will stay open, so you can go and see what the others put on the board, take inspiration for your own board, and tailor this to your local context and challenges. To continue with this process, so since we are going towards the end of the process, if you can go one slide back, please. We will share after the webinar some material that will again help you to proceed with the definition of your project. Here you can see we will share as last time some homework or some materials that will help you to build your own logbook to track your ideas, suggestions, and advancements, so to take trace of the progress you have done. In this last session, you will find all the section of the board, and this will help you to create the final proposal and include all the elements required with all the examples that we provide. So this is not mandatory, it's just for you to help towards the process of building the final proposal. So for all the group that haven't done yet, if you want, if you're new here and you want to create your own group at home, please register. So in the next slide, you can find the QR code to register your own group, and also the QR code to submit your idea. You can do already now. The submission form is already open, and we are looking forward to see all your solution. Remember that the submission deadline is the 8th of December. And before that, for the enrolled groups who wish to join, we will also share a registration form for an additional session that will be devoted to addressing your questions, resolving any doubts, providing any feedback for your final idea. So there will be also this additional opportunity. I will just thank you again for being with us and hope to see you and looking forward to see all your ideas and submission.
And thank you, Andrea, for leading today's activity and summarizing all the key information once again. I would like to repeat again that we are looking forward to see your idea submission, and especially because we are going to review all of them, and the winners will be involved in the Finance Innovation Festival on insurance and investment opportunities for nature-based transformations, which will take place from the 3rd to the 5th of February in Brussels. On the 5th of February, we will have a dedicated session on cities resilience, where our Naturethon winners will engage with other cities and share their nature-based solution ideas with the festival participants. Regardless of the Naturethon outcomes, you're welcome to join the festival by registering directly on the event page. We will also share the link with you in the chat. And when registering, there's an open call for contributions. So we truly hope to see some of you there. I am seeing in the chat that some people are asking for the materials from these sessions and the homeworks, and we will provide all of that to the groups with a dedicated communication after the webinar. So please register your group and register to the newsletter to make sure you receive all of the materials. And finally, we hope that the webinar of today and Naturethon in general has inspired you to bring some nature positive change to your communities. And on behalf of the entire Naturethon team, good luck with your idea submissions and have a great evening. Thank you, everyone, and thank you to the speakers and my colleagues in the background.